So welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us. We're going to have a very exciting story to share with you, together with my partners, our partners from AWS. But I want to start with a question. Is 6 months a long time? I can see the body language. Sometimes say like, yes, no, it depends, and it does. So think about, how would you think about the question if I tell you that to develop a new medicine can take 15 years? How do you feel about the question now? Is 6 months a long time? I see someone saying, no, I get it. So now, think about a person, a patient, someone who has just been diagnosed and can start the treatment immediately, or wait 6 months. It can make all the difference. And that's exactly how we think about time and accelerating drug development at Novartis. My name is Anna Klebus. I'm leading data, digital, and IT for drug development at Novartis. And today I have a great pleasure to introduce you to our data and AI modernization journey. As a company, our goal is quite simple. Develop better medicine faster so they can reach the patient sooner. And that's what's fueling our ambition with AI. In order to deliver on that mission, we recognize that AI needs to be a foundation across all of our across our therapeutic areas and across all of our pure play strategy of innovative medicine. And in order to do it, we try to integrate AI across the entire organization. The way we think about AI is really within the concept of augmentation. And when I say augmentation, I mean we are treating machine learning and artificial intelligence as an enhancement, augmentation of the natural human intelligence of our leaders. So let's go back to this concept of accelerating drug development, which is one of our key priorities. Previously, we've been always talking about strategy, manufacturing, operations, when we were talking about faster drug development. Only recently can we stand up a third pillar, which is about technology, data, and AI. And in the context of AI, we set ourselves a very ambitious target to be able to shorten the development cycle for each individual trial, at least by 6 months. And at Novartis, we have a strong conviction it's already possible today. How are we going to do it? We basically analyzed each step of the RDC continuum, it's research, development, and commercial continuum. And we identify those problem areas across the value chain which can be addressed by AI, if not today, then tomorrow. And for us at Novartis, it became clear that given the current pace of AI, unlocking this capability is really a question of when, not if. And all of us being in this event and hearing over the last 2 days, I think you would agree with me. So up here, you can see how we are applying AI across the R&D continuum. There is a lot of exciting work happening on the biomedical research side, in our unit on the research side. And there is, like, for today, we're going to be talking about development, which is on the right-hand side. From the beginning of our journey, we were aiming to create an approach to AI. Pace of technology has been the reason mainly, which is quite adaptive. And what does it mean? We incorporated 3 key principles in the way how we approach AI. Modularity was the first one. So what does that mean? You could see here on the slide a lot of interventions, and I'm sure in your companies you have a lot of these use cases. So we wanted to make sure that those use cases which we are doing are individually valuable but collectively transformative. We also think of modularity to architect the system in a way that we can kind of plug and play. Think about we are building a house, like a Lego blocks, like a house. And then we say, if you look at the protocol design, we're implementing something which is our own build, but we see there is something on the market. So coming back to the house analogy, if you have the windows, which suddenly you can get some much better windows on the market, we need to make sure that the overall ecosystem is architected in a way that we can take something which is already available and much better than what we have and plug it in. That was really critical principle how we approach AI. The second one was really to create a balanced portfolio. We all in our organization coming from this mushrooming use cases, like a massive number of use cases we don't know how to deal with. So we managed to maintain a portfolio which is well curated. We are keeping a very healthy balance between this very ambitious moonshot AI innovation, counterbalance with those from more like a low-hanging fruit, which are in document generation, like everybody does it. They're really useful because they are building the confidence in AI as a technology. They're bringing value fast. They create this excitement. Unlikely they're gonna make a significant difference across the organization. And last but not least was about ruthless prioritization. Again, we cannot do everything. We need to be quick. What we're gonna cut, which we believe does not really bring value, and focus on those things which are adding value. And those are fully resourced and fully funded. So let's take a look at the one which is more in the category of a moonshot. It's ideas. It's intelligent decision system. And it's meant to be like a digital twin. It's supposed to work for us like we're working on it as computational twin that allows software-based simulation of entire end-to-end clinical trial operational plan. It pulls inputs and outputs from relevant areas and can allow us what-if analysis, scenario planning, scenario optimization. If you think about the clinical trial like 7, maybe 9 years journey, there is a lot of data points. There is potentially a few interventions which needs to be made to get the best outcome. So that would allow us to have database analysis before we actually putting that in real life. So that's the one which we really have big hopes, and that can be a true breakthrough. So I've been talking a little bit about the why and the what. So let me switch to the how. There were 2 big realizations from early stage of the journey. We knew what we need to solve for. One was about how we're gonna scale from MVP or like POC or the use case. So scaling was one thing, and the second one was obviously data. So when we talk about scaling, together with AWS, we created a relatively simple map of AI capabilities. We picked those which are mostly relevant for the business we operate within. That allow us to group use cases of the similar nature and really gain the speed of implementation because we know how to apply those capabilities in these particular cases. That could be in document generation as a simple example, whether it's a clinical study report or a document for medical affairs, it's kind of a similar type of mechanism we would like to use. It also shortens significantly time to value. Talking about data, and that's the majority what you're going to hear from AWS colleagues, we decided to create jointly with AWS, with support of Accenture, a truly, we call it next generation data platform, a truly integrated single platform to support all of our functions under drug development. And you're going to hear much more from the technology point of view, but just as a short introduction, it was important for us to design integrated data platform which will serve all the business functions. It was very important to make sure that we can pull different wide range of internal and external data sources and be able to create reusable enterprise-wide data asset with supporting the different needs, different data consumption needs. It started as a technology program. It started as an infrastructure almost program. And it very quickly was elevated to be a true catalyst to accelerate our AI ambition for clinical trial transformation. Technology is absolutely critical as a foundation. It's not going to be enough for the ultimate success. Our learnings are that we need to figure out how to trigger certain organizational and cultural shifts within the organization, which are particularly important for bringing AI as an enabler. One of them was like, how are we going to think about value? We created a very robust value framework, and we managed to create a very clear ROI for each of the use cases. That would help to prioritize between use cases, but it also was driving a certain accountability towards the leaders who are claiming that this value is going to be delivered. So this accountability topic is really, really important as well. The second thing was we need to think about ways of working. You all know adding an agent to an existing process is not just adding an agent to an existing process. A lot of legacy processes needs to be redefined, and that gave us this opportunity. We want our workforce to feel confident with AI. Lots of effort put into upskilling as well, and that allow us to get this kind of generate this excitement of being part of that journey, and that led us to this additional natural adoption of those tools, and I would definitely strongly invite you to consider such an approach. And last but not least, our strength is our science. Our strength is understanding the area we operate. But to really gain scale, to really gain innovation, we needed to make sure we know who are we going to partner with. Hence me talking to you today, as we have a joint partnership, a very strong strategic partnership with AWS, especially in the area of AI, and also the next gen. That's the one which you're going to hear more. Everything I talked about, I have to say, through those journey, it's been very important. What is the most important is the time. It's the shortest possible time to bring new medicine to patients who need it. Because time is life. Thank you, and I'm going to hand over to our partners in AWS.
Thank you, Anna, for the wonderful insights and your vision on what you need to do. And hello, everyone. It's great to see you all here. My name is Apurva Soshi. I'm part of the AWS Professional Services team that is trying to make Novartis' vision that you just saw into a reality. Now, as we started working from the ground up, we realized that there are some challenges that we're going to have to navigate through within Novartis. Some of them you might find familiar. A, Novartis was working with a couple of legacy systems at the time. This means it didn't only bring in the technical challenges such as low efficiency, potential exposure to risks, potential vendor lock-ins, etc., but we were also going to have to navigate through an organizational and people governance mindset changes. Another challenge that arose out of this was the fragmented data landscape that Novartis has. So essentially, the way that the company is built is that they have different verticals that they call domains. Now, each of these domains has a specialized thing that they are meant to do. For example, one domain works with anything related to patient safety data, another one with medical systems imaging, another one with auditing and regulatory requirements. However, these domains at the time were purposefully built for their own domains and specializations, but not necessarily built for interoperability with each other. But in order to get the digital twin that you just saw, we realized that these domains are going to have to talk to each other. But at the moment, this was a very fragmented landscape. This goes hand in hand with the third challenge that we got, which was about scalability. They were not built in a way, or at least not to the kind of scalability that was going to be required to make Novartis' vision that you saw earlier. So we knew if we're going to work from the ground up, we're going to have to be ambitious. And for this, what we needed to do was to fortify the core. What do I mean by fortification of the core? Let's say you have a house, continuing on the house analogy. Let's say it's a legacy house. It's an old one, but you want to build a smart home on it. So it's always possible to get in an Alexa device or a smart device and plug it in. It will work, but is it really efficient? It's a really old house. You may need to re-architect the wiring. You may need to at least modernize it. You may need to make sure that your sockets are correctly placed so that it can support all of your devices. You need to make sure that the devices in one room are able to talk to devices in the other room. And this is exactly what we needed to do for NextGen, fortify the core. And all of this while maintaining the reliability, the integrity, the security, the sanctity of the data underlying. This is the only way we could be really fit for any future development. So, given everything, we had a vision, and a vision that we thought could address most of these challenges. On the left-hand side, you see data sources from all the different domains that you saw. In the middle, everything with a white background is essentially a data platform that we were building to augment the use cases that you just saw. Don't worry about the boxes. We'll go through each one of them in a bit more detail in a minute. And essentially, the vision was to have a mesh-type subscription so that any data sources, any data that is provided here, any use case that needs it should be able to search for it, should be able to request it, and once approved, should be able to use it. But before I dive in and explain what each of those boxes mean in our vision, let me give you a little sneak peek into what we were able to do with one of our early adopters. So when we started, we asked all the domains within Novartis who would like to volunteer with us. And we were hoping that the right domain would say yes, and they did. This domain is called safety. And it was the best thing that could have happened to us because it was one of the most challenging domains to work with. Why do I say that? Because this is the domain that works with patient health data directly, with adverse effects. Imagine you go to the store, you take a pill, you have a side effect, you're going to register this as a complaint. This is the domain that deals with it. So as you can imagine, this domain's data is highly sensitive, not just for the patients, not just for people like you and me, but also for the company. This means that this was one of the most compliant domains that we could ask for. In the context of Novartis, the compliance standards that they use, in this case, was GXP. GXP stands for Good X Practice. X could refer to any industry like manufacturing. In this case, it was good clinical practice. You will see in a later slide what this actually means and how we implemented it, but for now know that this is challenging to implement. Anyway, when we used this vision and used it with one of our early adopters, we were able to build 16 data pipelines in a matter of months, which processed about 17 terabytes of data. This alone, with just one domain and just the first step, we were able to reduce the query speeds by about 72% and the storage costs reduced by about 60%. And this is not even including the automations that we did, which led to up to 160 plus hours of reduction of manual work that was done in this domain. So now that you've seen of what this vision can do, let's try to understand what it means, step by step. Let's start with one of the classics, the Ingestion Framework. You've seen that you've seen like many domains, many sources that the data comes in from. Novartis has a very fragmented, a very heterogeneous landscape. And we realized that data is coming in the form of files, in the form of relational databases, in the form of life sciences platforms such as Viva Vault, or from master data management systems such as Reltio. All different formats, all different types. And we wanted to find a good balance between using one solution fits all versus a single solution for each kind of ingest. We found this balance by kind of grouping together certain ingest capabilities that can use the same method to get the data into the platform. For example, for file share systems, we realized that data is coming in from SharePoint, from some of the other file servers, but we could, in theory, use the same method to get this data in. One of the key differentiators on this project, what we did, was the use of architectural decision records, or ADRs. What ADRs mean is essentially that you would do a pros and cons list, if you will, of all the technology or tools that are fit for purpose. And you would already know what this tool can and cannot do. You just need to write it down. However, what's important is that you also keep the organizational culture in mind. Are you a build versus a buy company? Do you have any existing enterprise licenses? Do you have cost restrictions? What is the skill set of your workers like? Take that all into consideration before you choose what kind of tool and technology you choose underneath it. And each of the boxes that you see on the left are modular. This allowed us to actually be able to adapt with changing technology. If we wanted to change, let's say, upgrade a version, or we wanted to upgrade something to a different technology, making this modular and choosing ADRs for each of these components allowed us to be flexible enough to do so. Now that we've ingested the data from all of the different sources into the platform, we're going to have to store it and process it. In here, all the little hexagons that you see on the top are actually domains, safety being one of them, for instance. And for those of you who are new to data products, they're essentially a way for ingested data to go through certain processes. So for instance, the first level, it typically goes through 3 levels. The first one is usually a one-to-one copy, maybe anonymized data that is ingested into the platform. The second one is where you try to create a reusable asset out of it. So maybe an intermediate data product that may be used by multiple data sources. And the final layer is usually a very consumer-specific processing so that any use case that needs it gets exactly what they need. They don't have to do any more processing to get it. It's faster and more efficient for the end user. So this is what you see in the right side of or the left side of the image, which is analytical data products. And when you do all of these processes, you have to create jobs that do this, right? In the context of Novartis, we had all infrastructure was based on AWS, and we used Databricks on top of it to deliver these. All of the code, of course, needs to be written in infrastructure as code, and using the CI/CD pipelines, this gets deployed. So each of the domains that you see on top, they have their own AWS accounts in dev, QA, test, and prod environments. And these CI/CD pipelines will automatically deploy these data products into it. But what's important is that when you create these data products, you also create kind of a directory for it. You register a data product. Think about it as a registration form. So you would put in a bit of business metadata, like what is this data set about? If it's about a clinical data set from Berlin in a particular site, you give all of this information in so that whoever wants to use this data is able to find it. And you will see in one of the next slides how this metadata is actually used. One key differentiator with what we have on Novartis is also that the operational data part of it. So analytical data is used for very heavy analytics kind of use cases, but there's also transactional and operational use cases that Novartis needed. And for this, we made sure that there is a way to store and process and query relational data. Today, this is done on Amazon RDS. Now that you've stored the data, you've processed it, you've gotten it ready, you have to make sure that your data is managed efficiently, that you have governance around it. It's one of the most underrated topics, honestly. For instance, you have to make sure that the data shows up on your enterprise data catalog. So think about it as an Amazon.com web page, but for data products instead of products that you can just go in and buy from. Second, you need to make sure that you are securing the traceability of the data. Where did it come from? Where is it going? Think about the data quality that you want to enforce. There's two kinds of data qualities. There is business data qualities and technical. Technical data quality is simple and easy to understand, like a certain column or a certain row has to be, a certain column has to be a certain data type, for instance. But business data quality is going to make sure that your data is clean and usable. For instance, if a clinical trial needs patients who are not adults or room temperature to a certain setting, but you get data that is not fitting into these constraints, then it's a business data quality problem. Like 40, for example, is not a wrong age. However, it makes the business case invalid. Therefore, we should not be allowed to use this data. And lastly, make sure you have governance over access management. Who is actually using it? To ensure that we have management and governance in place, again, we did a few ADRs. We thought about what principles are important to us, and we realized that simplicity is actually one of the key elements that will take us far. So for example, in this scenario, we tried to use as many out-of-the-box solutions as possible for the given infrastructure that we had. We tried to do it incremental even. For example, in the first stage, it was enough for us to have data traceability within the AWS, within the Databricks domain. In the next incremental step, we will increase it to include also the sources and also the targets. So do what fits your use case. Finally, how are you going to consume the data? Let's say you are a data practitioner. You go to your enterprise data catalog, put in your key requests, put in your keywords, you find something that you like and you hit, oh, I request this data. There is a data owner who is eventually going to approve or reject your request. If it's rejected, the data practitioner gets a notification and the workflow ends there. However, if you're approved, you get to be part of the data product experience. You can now use this clean, this business qualified data to use either in visualization tools such as QuickSuite or Power BI or Tableau, whatever your company uses. You can use it in your AI/ML playgrounds. You can use it in SageMaker. You can use it in Bedrock. And all of the beautiful things that you saw in Anna's slides, which were about protocol draft generation and so on. This is the way that the data would be consumed into these platforms. But now it's more secure. It is compliant, and you will see how in a minute. And it is flowing through the central data platform. Again, there is also an operational or relational experience that we have. So for those business users who still want to run SQL queries, they can connect via the JDBC clients directly into RDS. Now, this process is a little bit more manual than the automated data products, but this is how the landscape works. The fifth and the final box the white box that you saw from the data platform is the central observability platform. So everything that you do, for example, when you ingest some data, you process it, if you have access requests going to the catalog, you have data quality jobs that are failing or getting successfully passed, all of the cost information as well. We are making sure that it routes to a central observability platform. This allowed us to create all kinds of dashboards on this AWS account. In theory, it is possible to keep all the logs and audit traces and financial information where they are, but then the processing side of it, when you create a dashboard, they're going to have multiple connections. So for us, in our case, it made more sense to do it this way. So bringing it all together, you've now seen how we've started with all the data sources, ingested them into the platform, make sure they're stored and processed in every way that is meant for consumption. the consumption happens via this approved workflow. All the while, you're maintaining the management and governance on the whole process, and all of the data is flowing into, all of the logs and trace data is flowing into the observability platform so that you can create all kinds of dashboards that you need with it. So I did talk about compliance quite a bit. So how did we do it? First of all, you need to understand that compliance is not just a process. It's a lifestyle, if you will. You need to integrate it in every part of your progress. In this case, when we had the vision of the platform, it was still uncompliant. The minute we started designing for compliance, this is where it kicks in. The way that you take in user requirements, for instance, you could do it in a Word document. You could use something like Amazon Transcribe and get the notes from it. You can do it in Jira, like we do in Novartis. But the way that you do it in certain formats, which can link back to how you are doing something or why you're doing it. The way that once you have the design ready, you can already start to do threat modeling on it. You don't need to wait until something is implemented to go and see if there is a vulnerability. You can start it at the design phase. I'm not going to go through each one of them in details, but this is also where architectural decision records come in handy. Because in this kind of compliance, you need to prove why you did what you did. And the ADRs here help us to prove that we indeed did the right approach, and this is why we did it, and this is for what we did it. Secondly, once you've designed for compliance, you start implementing your platform. And this is where your implementation controls kick in. Make sure you identify your security controls, your audit controls in every single component of what you build. At the same time, you also need to do your tests. If you've heard of IQs, infrastructure quality tests, performance quality tests, they all happen simultaneously as you're implementing the platform. And finally, you document for compliance. So as you are close to the finishing end of your compliance journey and the building of the platform journey, you're going to document everything that you did. You're going to make a handbook of all the architecture that you did, an operational handbook. How do you use something? Validation plans. Remember the test that you did? You're going to have to prove that, oh, this was the intent, this was the result of the test, and it did actually match the intent. If not, don't change the tests, go back and change your architecture or implementation. And this is how you go from a non-compliant vision of a platform to a compliant one. Now, this is also one area that we want to improve significantly in the future. We do have plans to maybe use Bedrock in connection with Lambda to auto-generate some of these tests and some of these documentations. Because you could do something as easy as give it the diagram that you have, and it will spit out a description. Or there's also a more complex way that you can try to automate IQs, PQs, OQs, these kinds of tests. And this is not to say that the people on the project, we have really skilled people on the project, not to say that it saves them time or that they're not efficient, but this can be really, really efficient and tries to think of edge use cases that as a human, we may not sometimes. So what's next in store for us? We have a short-term, an intermediate, and a long-term vision. So in the short term, what we want to do is that we want to mature this platform to have at least 51 new capabilities. At the moment, everything that you saw was about 38. We want to add new capabilities to it because this is what we're hearing from our consumers, is what they need. And we want to onboard 4 more domains, just like safety, and test out interoperability in more focused areas. In the intermediate milestone, we want to connect this to all of the GenAI use cases and all the operations AI use cases that you heard from Anna, so that the protocol generation, for example, this is something that we run. Within protocol generation, we already see 83 to 87% acceleration in protocols that are acceptable, not just completed, which are acceptable by compliance standards. However, at the moment, they're either running on demo data or getting data from on-premises systems or from some legacy systems. And in the future, they will get clean, super efficient, fast data from this platform. And of course, our long-term goal is to enable this IDS, the digital twin that we saw. So all of this, all of the platform that you saw was just the base layer. We do have work ongoing in the middle layers, but we want to bring it all together because, as you heard from Anna, time is life. With that being said, I'll now hand over to my colleague Kaustubh, who will talk you through some of the lessons learned and how you can apply them in your day-to-day life. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So let's talk a little bit about, you've heard so far from my colleagues here on the journey of data and AI. And now I want to talk to you about what are the lessons learned from this journey over a year and a half that we've done with Novartis. And we're going ahead, so we're keeping these lessons learned in mind as we go ahead. We'll also talk about 5 key important concepts and topics that you should keep in mind as you are accelerating on your own journey for data and AI. Those 5 things we'll talk about is, what are the critical success factors that you need to keep in mind as you're building this platform and making it for your business? Second is, what is the role of technology IT team and your business in this journey for you, and how can that alignment and partnership strengthen over a period of time? The third thing we'll talk about is, how can you unlock trapped business value? And I'll explain what it means, but how can you do more for business in short amount of time? The fourth is, security is very important for all our design principles, the job zero for AWS. We'll talk about how do you design your system securely, responsible data and AI, and components that to keep in mind. And the last is, how can AWS Professional Services help you? We've built some accelerators, we've built some capabilities that you can use through Marketplace or through us, and we'll talk a little bit about how those are available for you. So let's talk about lessons learned. We've divided these lessons learned across 2 different areas. One is organization and one is execution. Across the organization, there are 3 critical areas. The first is, stakeholder education is very critical. You'll hear that more and more again in the journey, is like different levels of stakeholders involved in your organization, starting with your C-level executions, your technical team, small business teams, teams that are on the ground. So educating everyone along the way is very important. Like going back to the Novartis story, right? Addressing the $2.6 billion drug problem, expediting by 6 months, you've heard these words earlier. But when we educated this to every stakeholder along the way, and they started realizing that, oh, if I do this, and if I do this, I can actually help my patients get drugs faster, the adoption accelerated very quickly because they were onboarded, they understood the idea, and they understood the vision we were going towards. The second is data-driven culture. The outcomes that Apurva just spoke about, right? 71.8% query speed increase, 60% cost optimization, 160 plus hours saved. These weren't just technical wins. They actually demonstrated how trusted data, fast access to data, democratization of data, and having that user self-experience actually drives a culture of transformation. When users start to see that, hey, this is easy for me, I can use it faster to enable my business, they actually give you more and more inputs, and you can improve your platform. So that data-driven culture has been very important. And the third is reusability of data products. The data mesh architecture that you just saw through, we built it on the 5 pillars of foundation, but they weren't just single-use solutions or use cases built just for once. They were supporting multiple AI use cases and across some of the R&D portfolio that you saw earlier. Now let's talk about what are the execution. As we've been deploying this project along the way, what has been our lessons learned? So there are 4 key lessons learned. The first is, how can we reduce complexity? So we eliminated data fragmentation. We eliminated the fact that there were copies of data. So the 60% cost optimization that you saw, the speed increase of user experience, came through reduction of data pipelines, duplicate copying of data, unnecessary data provisions, because that led to analysis which was not correct. The second is open standards matter. We talked about this a little bit earlier. So as this is a GxP compliant environment, the interoperability required between the tools is very much was an important need and ask. So, and as Novartis was going on this journey, they had to integrate different data sources, they had to integrate various therapeutic areas, and also technologies across multiple platforms. So we made a conscious decision that, hey, having a more open standard data format, table format, tools that we bring in, AWS services that are plugged in, need to be open and communicated to each other so that we don't lock ourselves into a particular capability and then have to work around that capability. The third is observability. We saw about that earlier as well. The reason it's important because it drives accountability. What it means, it's not about just, hey, having a logs in a central place on pretty dashboards. It's not about that. It's about ensuring that you give back to your users a visibility of what is the quality of my data, who's accessing my systems, how can I make it more secure, is there any ability for me to increase the speed, reduce latency. That level of observability and that level of transparency was very important. Users gave us good feedback that, hey, we would like to have more features. We would like to have total control of our data products, so we know that, we know the business, we know the data, We would love to see, and we would like to see more and more capabilities around how can we enhance this future. So that was a very positive feedback, and we are enhancing that in 2026. And the right is choosing the right implementation partner. This is very critical. As Anna said earlier, 70% of your success lies with culture and organization. 30% is the technology tools in the process. This is very important because the partner you select in the journey is going to bring in all the expertise. And AWS Professional Services, along with Accenture as our partner, we provided these accelerators, and it was a very strategic collaboration on this journey. So let's talk about the first point of the areas that you can implement. First is critical success factors. The 4 critical factors to keep in mind is vision. We've spoken about this earlier as well. Having a clear business vision and outcome. What are you building towards? It's not technology for technology's sake. What am I driving? What outcomes am I unlocking? Once you have that clarity among your stakeholders, it's critical because you're driving and your decisions that you're making goes towards that. The second is then sponsorship. Multiple levels of sponsorship, C-levels, VPs, teams below that. Getting their buy-in is important because they will help you enable the outcomes through your systems. Third is well-informed tech stakeholders. Your technology teams needs to understand the outcomes as well, because they will take you from your current state to go to your future state. That transformation will happen through their help. So they are your enablers to help define the right technology foundation and help scale that. And the last is change management. This is very, very important, because as you're changing the ways of your working, you're changing your team structure, you will come across decisions that you'll have to make around, do I need to change my reporting? Do I need to change or organize my teams in a fashion that moves faster? Do I need to make certain business decisions of moving certain capabilities as per your timeline? And that will drive your data culture, your governance. And this is very important because as your organization adapts to new ways of working, you will start to see these changes, and these changes start to evolve and help you expedite. The second factor, what is the role of technology and business team? The way I simply try to put it is the middle part is your technology team. They are the ones who will help you build your platforms. They'll help you run it. They'll help you enhance and modernize it. It's a critical factor. Keep in mind that it's not about IT dictating solutions that, hey, you have to build around this way. It's a more strategic collaboration partnership. So this is where the platform team comes in. They provide security controls. They simplify your onboarding, self-serve user experience. Then comes your producers who bring the data. They know the data better than anyone else. They're the ones who can help you bring the domain expertise, ownership, quality, and then metadata-driven management to make sure that as you're creating data products, they're aligned to the quality standards, they're aligned to the governance standards that the technology team is setting. And then comes your data consumers, who are the ones who will determine take the data in, prioritize your businesses, do analytic-driven discovery on it, create more pipelines if required, and create business insights. So the success here looks like your ability to meet producer and consumer requirements will help determine the success of your platform. GenAI use cases that sit on top of it, and then your organization's ability to scale. Third point, capturing the trapped business value. So continuing on the same theme, as you heard from the Novartis story, right, having the right data foundation, that's table stakes. So as you see in this one, there are 2 layers. One is the realized business value, and there's a trapped potential business value. And the difference between them is what you can maximize along your journey. So the first is foundation, that's table stakes. But the criticality is having the industry-focused use cases. So for Novartis, you saw AI trial transformation, trial design, predictive safety. These weren't generic projects that were picked independently. There was actually a strategy behind it and a laser-focused approach to solve the problems, step-by-step approach. The combination of this foundation and the business outcomes and use cases that were delivered along the way actually helps you capture the trapped value all over a period of time. I hear from my customers all the time that, hey, that's great, I want to get started, but I don't want to spend like a year, 6 months building a data platform again. I have my data on-prem, I have my data in a certain application, some of it is in S3, other areas. I hear that all the time. And at AWS, we think of generative AI as a plug-in to applications that sit in the same ecosystem. What I mean by that is you can actually leverage your existing data wherever it sits and start deriving outcomes. It will be gradual, it will be ramp up, but it'll help you get started quickly. You don't have to get on a year-long journey of data. It's a hybrid approach, as you heard so far. You build the foundation, but you also deliver business use cases along the way. So your business starts to see that, hey, this actually the time, energy, and money we're investing in this actually starting to reap value faster. So the way we look at it is like, you don't have to bring your data on AWS on day one, but you can bring it, plug it in where, using our AWS services like SageMaker and others. You can plug in where it sits, and then along the way start to make decisions that, hey, what will help me enhance this platform? If I use a certain service on AWS, how will it make faster? Use our partner services who can plug in better, or how can I move this along the way to reduce latency? As you think along that direction, that will help you meet your business goals and outcomes faster, and your data platform starts to evolve to a certain level of maturity along the way. The fourth point is security. So security is job zero for us at AWS. Like, it's not just about winning security standards or meeting your KPIs. We've actually seen that responsible AI, it's more than just having ticking off a KPI. It's actually more realizing business value. Organizations that we've seen implement responsible AI and AI practices have 25% increased customer loyalty and satisfaction, and 82% expect improved employee experience and trust. Trust, that is very important, because once they start trusting your data, your approach, they're going to do more with it. So these are the 5 pillars. I'm going to talk about a few, but these are the 5 pillars that you keep in mind on how do you make your data and AI platform more responsible and have it more trust, increase the trust of your users. For example, data quality and veracity. You can use glue quality, data zone capabilities to ensure your foundation is trustworthy. Automated safeguards in guardrails. Amazon AWS Bedrock. Guardrails for Bedrock helps you with harmful content. It helps you reduce hallucinations, while also watermarking for Titan increases and combats disinformation. This is very important. ML and AI governance. Using SageMaker data and AI governance, model monitor, and also AI service cards, it can help you provide end-to-end observability. So these tools operationalize, think of them as tools that will help you along the way. So all the way from, you saw ingestion, transformation, analytics, governance, and then consumption. Think of implementing security every level of the way. Don't think of it as like it's something on the side, right? It's how can I ingrain them along the way, along the system, all those steps of the way, so that it's actually a good outcome at the end and you're meeting your standards and helping increase your trust. And it's not just about data and AI model, it's also about throughout your infrastructure. So the way I think of it is 3 layers. It's your infrastructure, table stakes, data sitting on top, and then AI models that you sit on top of it. So if it's a 3-layer, these are all the services that are going to help you span across the entire stack. So if I talk about infra and application for a few minutes, it's your encryption of data along the way can be done through key management systems and certificate manager. If you talk about network security and isolation, use VPCs. Look at your design policies of, should I use private link to ensure private connectivity within my ecosystem? How can I, which region to choose that data and how does that flow between them? Do I keep it within availability? I think keeping those decisions will help you secure your network isolation. Observability, we spoke about that earlier as well. Governance and compliance. The organizations, as you enable it, if you're following certain standards on HIPAA, ISO, SOC compliance, we talk about the GXP journey. How can you build some of those capabilities around config, using that to get more visibility across your environment? So these services work together to make your end-to-end platform more secure, more meet your privacy standards, and more auditable at every layer. So let me bring the picture together now. For the last 15 minutes, you've heard about the journey, right? So how do people see about it? So think of generative AI as the business idea as an iceberg. What we see above the waterline is the innovation, the application, the good stuff, like fun stuff. That gets people's attention. That's the outcomes. That's excitement. But the real foundation comes at the bottom. This is what we've been talking about for the last 15 minutes, right? How do you have your foundation right? How do you ensure that your systems are in place? And they're spread across 4 key areas. Your mindset, your organization, the vision, the people, what skills, roles, capabilities, how you need to define some, how do I train my people? How do I get them onboarded to more tools and capabilities? Process around governance, ethics, change management, alignment with your organization as you go along the vision. And then at the end, we see technology as a solid enabler. So ensuring data quality, foundation models. We sometimes talk about just the outcome and directly jump to technology. But I wanted to call out this picture to say that the steps along the way are very, very important, because that will help you, as your organization, your company, adapt those changes really get in and buy in on the transformation? And are we all heading towards the right business outcome? So let me switch gear to the fifth topic on how can we help you. So along the journey, right, either you are in a design strategy phase at the beginning, or you're modernizing your architecture along the way, or you're mature on, hey, I'm actually leveraging my business applications and generative AI applications, I'm starting to build on it, but I'm having trouble with scale. Or, hey, I've built it, I'm evolving along the way, but I need help managing systems. So AWS Professional Services, our Generative AI Innovation Center, and our Managed Services team, we are to help you along the way. This will help. We will come and help you with either if you want to do, how can I prioritize my use cases? I hear from our customers around, hey, I'm not able to scale. I've designed this architecture. It's all serverless. It's all this, but it's just not scaling. What am I doing wrong? So we take a look at some of those capabilities as we come along the way, bring our scientists and engineers, data science expertise. So wherever you're on the journey, this will help, we can help come in. And our vision is a bit different. What we do is, with professional services, just as about technology, it's actually a strategic partnership to help you accelerate your transformation. Let me touch base on some of the accelerators. So we have two types of accelerators which are relevant to this story is on data strategy and generative AI. So data strategy, as you saw the journey earlier, right, along the same path, if you're in early stages of use case adoption roadmap, or you want to build a foundation quickly. So what we've seen is like we've actually been able to build foundation 4x times faster through our accelerators. We come in with a AI-ready accelerator architecture point of view, code, and then we try to configure it in your environment. So the time it takes now is not about building architecture from startup. Code creating is no longer like with Kiro and other tools, agents that are coming in, DevOps agents that were released earlier in preview. The writing code is the easy part nowadays. It's about how do I configure it in your system? How do I build it so that it integrates with your data, your processes, your governance? So that's where the foundation capabilities accelerators come in. And then we set the data use cases, MLOps use cases on top of it. So these are just some of the accelerators we bring to the table, and we've been able to deploy marketplace in weeks instead of months. We've seen 75% faster time to market for some of our ML use cases. On the generative AI side, we've got the same theme again. If you're in the early stages of defining, even if you need help defining a business case, we're there to help you. Like, hey, how do I define a business case? What are the capabilities that GenAI and AI ML can help us? And then once you start to build an AI-compliant platform, whether it's self-serve or you're doing more automation using toolkits or operating model, how do I make it a robust operating model? We bring the accelerators along the way to help you there. And then the use cases, these are just 3 examples of the use cases. Content automation is actually a very mature one that we've helped quite a few customers. And we've helped reduce 90% of their cost, where it is the cost of creating a document is just $15 a document versus $1,000 to $10,000. And the architecture, the acceleration, the speed that we bring in design comes as part of the use cases. So as I conclude, and I'll leave you with 5 key recommendations as we come to the end of the session. The first is think big, start small, and scale fast. This is a term I use quite a lot. And what it means is, it's good to have an ambition, vision. It's needed. But also talk about, hey, where am I getting started? If you're in the middle of your journey, revisit the vision. See, hey, am I heading in the right direction? Do I need to change my ways of working? Do I need to update anything in my approach? That's very important. So it's the second one, which is around in the same theme, is align it to business strategy goals. So it's not about technology modernization just for the sake of, hey, I like this tool, I want to implement it because it's going to be a small gain. But think about a holistic approach of how can I inject these capabilities and tools to directly support my business objectives. Third is work backwards from your customers, whether they're internal customers or external customers. The moment you take that approach and vision and build the solutions around it, adoption will not be a problem. So what are the capabilities? How do I release them? You can advertise them, you can bring them in, do some pilots. When you involve your customers very quickly and as early as possible, you get feedback, and your platform will evolve and grow towards the same direction as the needs and requirements of your customers. The fourth is focus on user experience and self-serve capabilities. And I think in today's world, our biggest lesson is the adoption is faster if you make it self-serve, easy, clickable, easy workflows that you saw the earlier subscribing to data products. It's like an experience of like Amazon.com shopping. Like I look through products, I like something, I'm going to put it in my cart, and I'm going to buy it. If you can make that your process as simple as that and keeping that vision in mind, it will help your customers improve the user experience and use your platform or your system more and more. And the last is choose the right implementation partner. It's very critical so that they bring in the right transformation, the change management, the success, and the technology, of course, who are more your strategic partners along the way. So thank you so much for being with us here. I'm going to leave you with some links here. Skill Builder is our online course. It has got 1,000+ free learning lessons that you can use. You can scan the QR code. It has hands-on labs and also official certification preparation material. And then I'm going to also leave you with 2 links. These are like, if you're interested in diving deep into AWS for data, there's a YouTube channel that talks about data structures. It talks about how to think about use cases, build platforms. These are just helpful links I'll leave on you. So thank you so much for spending the 55 minutes with us. I hope it was helpful. We'll be hanging out by the stage if you have any questions, but please give us your feedback in the session app. And thank you so much.